Now that you've had a chance to get some of the basics of genetics, we're going to look at some of these other situations where there's mixed or blended traits called codominance and incomplete dominance, which is different than the plain dominant recessive we learned about in the last lesson. So here's an example of incomplete dominance, and this is sometimes referred to as a blending of traits. And if you have a red homozygous parent flower and a white homozygous parent flower, all the offspring will be heterozygous because you'll get a big R from this one and you'll get a W from that side. Notice we don't use the same letters here because there isn't a dominant recessive. We use the letters to represent the colors, and the heterozygous is now pink, and so that's a blending of traits. You might wonder, why is it pink? Well, if you produce two sets of red proteins, so lots and lots of red proteins, you get this red color. If you produce lots of white proteins or no proteins, you might get this other color here. But if you have some reds and some whites, and this picture, this pink color here is actually a mixture of white and red pixels. There's no pink pixels in there. You get what appears to be like a blending of traits on a cellular level. So these little pigments are inside the cells, and when you look at the organism from the outside, the trait appears to be blended. And Mendel saw this in some flowers, and here's an example of what some of the early drawings were. Notice once again you have the P generation are both homozygous, so they have the same letters. The F1 generation gets a big R from here. It can get either big R, it doesn't matter. And it gets the W from here. And then in the F2 generation, if you were to cross two of these, once again we can go first and do our foil, white, white, so this one appears white. Inner, which is a red and a white. Outer, which is a white and a red. And last, two reds. You get a different distribution here. So we have a 1 to 2 to 1 genotypic ratio, 1 WW, 2 RWs, and 1 RR, as well as a 1 to 2 to 1 phenotypic ratio of white to pink to red. And so one of the nice things about incomplete dominance is that the genotypic and phenotypic ratios are the exact same, and so it makes some aspects of the problems a little bit easier. And don't forget to foil when you're doing these. Another trait we can have is codominance, and that is when both traits are expressed. So rather than having a blending, you get to see both of them. And blood types are an example of not only codominance, but actually dominant recessive as well. So if you have the A allele, which is abbreviated IA here, then you'll produce these proteins that go on the outside of the red blood cell. If you have the B allele, you will produce the proteins on the outside that look like that. If you have both IA and IB, then both proteins are produced. And we'll talk more about blood types later and look at some of those problems, but this is just an idea that both can be expressed when you have codominance. Notice in this case we have little I, which is recessive, which means there's no proteins on the outside of our blood cell. So let's take a look at some of these practice problems and see if we can figure out what's going to happen here. First of all, if it's incomplete dominance, and we're going to say that CR is a red flower and CY is a yellow flower, what's going to be the phenotype of this parent here that is CR-CY? Well, if it's incomplete dominance, it's blending, and so that's going to be a parent with an orange flower. Likewise over here, CR-CY, since it is heterozygous and it is complete dominance, the red and the yellow will be blended and you'll have orange flowers. So what's the phenotypic ratio of the offspring? Well, when we fill in these Punnett squares, we drop down and write in the one parent on the top. We can write that down in both columns. And here's the allele from that parent. So you have the two possible alleles you can get. And then over on the side here, we'll write across the two possible alleles you can get. So those CYs appear there, those CRs appear there, and well, so if this CR is from the father, we can see there's the alleles getting passed down there, and if this CY is from the father, we can see those alleles get passed down here. Likewise, if this CR is from the mother, there's the two CRs, the CRs that could possibly get passed on. If the CY is from the mother, those are the ones that get passed on. So this Punnett square is a way of doing that FOIL method and making it a little bit organized. So as we look at this, we've got 25% red, which is right here. We've got 50% orange, which is this box and this box. And you've got 25% yellow, which is over there, and that's our phenotypic ratio. Now as we look at codominance, we're going to go with black and white, and so this might be like colors on a cow or something, and blue and white, and we'll have those be flowers. So coming down from this parent, we get the B's, and then the W's here, and going across from this parent, we get the B's, and we get the W's here as well. So you have one that's blue, one that's white, and then the other two are going to be both blue and white. And that's the important difference here, is rather than it blending, because it's codominance, both are expressed. Where with incomplete dominance, this is where we have the blending of the traits. So now we've had a chance to see dominant, recessive, incomplete dominance, and codominance. And there's actually still a few more ways that we can get some of the complicated traits that we have on ourselves, and we'll get to those some more. But these are the very basics for genetics, and hopefully you understand how to use the Punnett square there, as it's kind of an example of foiling. If you think about it, if we had BW cross BW, then this is our first, and then this is our first BW here, then we'd have the W and the B there. This is our inner, this is our outer, and that's our last. So the Punnett square is really just another way of doing FOIL, and maybe making it a little bit easier for you.